This is AP Statistics Analysis Period 6, Group 1. And we compared Apple Music versus Spotify between the freshmen and the 12th graders at Loyola. This project was done primarily by myself and Ben and Hudson and Julio. Primarily by us. So our study investigated if there's any difference between the live music streaming service preferences, Spotify or Apple Music, among the Loyola students. We compared the preferences of 39 randomly selected freshmen and 46 randomly selected seniors. We utilized the Spotify proportions for each grade to most accurately compare preferences. And for our hypothesis testing, we had a proportion of freshmen who prefer Spotify over Apple Music, which is proportion of seniors who prefer Spotify over Apple Music, and then the proportion of freshmen who prefer Spotify over Apple Music is not equal to the proportion of Spotify or of seniors who prefer Spotify over Apple Music. So for the data collection, we basically employed random sampling by assigning a number to each student in the freshman and the senior class using the student directory. We used RandInt on the calculator to select 50 random numbers from each grade. Each student was then emailed this Google survey and their response were recorded in a Google Sheet. So that was how we collected our data.
All right, so these are the summary statistics we got from the Google Forms. So a little bit more seniors answered than freshmen, and then we got a very big increase or a lot more Spotify. Ellis, you're calling me right now. Stop calling me right now. But yeah, you can go to the next slide. But so yeah, our original intention was for 50 students of each grade to answer the questionnaire, but they didn't. 11 freshmen and 4 seniors didn't respond, so we encountered a non-response bias in both classes. This could have affected the results because I don't know, it could have been 50-50 with people that like didn't really care that much or would have just chosen something random. So and this bias might have not had an effect on the freshman senior comparison for hypothesis testing, but it would have given an inaccurate depiction of the true proportions.
So here's our two-way table. You saw some of these numbers earlier in the summary statistics, but here are the p hats for our freshman and senior preferences. So we had 13 out of the 39 freshmen who prefer Apple Music, so that's about 1/3, and then 2/3 for freshmen who use Spotify. And for the seniors, we had 10 using Apple Music, which came out of the 46, which came out to 0.217, and then 36 seniors who use Spotify, which came out to 0.783. So here's just like kind of a visual representation of those statistics. See, it's looking kind of similar. And these numbers combine for that around like 73 to 73%, 27% for the combined total, but we have 66%, 33%, 78%, 21% for the two grades. So before we were to find our p-value, so we can see if we can reject the null reject or not reject the null hypothesis, we had to check our conditions. So we use random sampling, not random assignment, because we were doing we're not doing an experiment. So the random sampling was employed using a random number selection process, RandInt on the TI-84. Then we had to check the 10% rule, which is if that our data points was 10%, was below 10% the actual population, and was below 10% below all freshmen and seniors, not limiting to Loyola High School. And for large counts, to verify large counts, we had to multiply the number of data points times the proportion for each of the freshmen and the seniors. So for the 39 freshmen, we multiplied by using our Spotify proportion. And then obviously for the Apple Music, you do the 1 minus the Spotify, and all were greater than 10. So we were able to check all conditions so we could go through with our 2-sample z-test, which is on the next slide. Or 2-proportion z-test, my apologies. So we used the Spotify data to most easily compare for the null and alternative hypotheses. So we had 26 freshmen who used Spotify out of the 39, and then 36 seniors who used Spotify out of the 46. And our final command on the calculator was to set them not equal, which is our alternative hypothesis. Our z-score, what we found was -1.2, and our p-value 0.231 with a significance level of 0.05.
So obviously, we cannot reject the null since the p-value, which is 0.231, is greater than 0.05, which was a significance level. We cannot reject the null hypothesis that the proportion of freshmen who prefer Spotify over Apple Music is equal to the proportion of seniors who prefer Spotify over Apple Music. There is not convincing evidence for the alternative hypothesis that the proportion of freshmen who prefer Spotify over Apple Music is not equal to the proportion of seniors who prefer Spotify over Apple Music. Where we could have had some improvement, because we did not reject the null hypothesis, there's a possible type 2 error if the alternative is actually true. This error becomes less and less likely as we take more samples from the Loyola student population. However, more data points would only improve our statistical analysis, either further validating our verdict or uncovering a new trend that could make rejecting the null more of a possibility. And thank you for listening.
Thank you. Spotify
Thank
took
you.
the job.